Conor Neill here, sat in one of our classrooms in Barcelona. I'm looking forward to see you shortly as we gather together for the program. You've watched a couple of videos already, talked about communication as a leader, talked about your responsibility to take responsibility for your communication. Practice this habit of daily preparation using the webcam. And we talked about Aristotle, logos, ethos, pathos. What I'd like to just share in closing are two things. One, the most impactful teacher I ever met in my life, Mr. Maths. I met him when I was 14 years old and he was teaching biology. And I remember at the very beginning of class, he held up the textbook and he said to us 14-year-olds, he said, "How much is this book worth?" Biology textbook. And a group of 14-year-olds shuffling. Eventually, someone says, $30. He says, "Yeah, this book is worth $30. If at the end of this course you've learned everything in this book and passed every test on this book, you're worth $30 more. But if at the end of this course you've become curious about how things work, curious about how systems interact, if at the end of our course you've become curious about when someone uses words and they engage you and they excite you and they lead you to see things in a different way, you stop and you pay attention. What are they doing? What can I take from this? If someone is boring you, you stop and you think, what would it take for them to use words more effectively? And you use your notebook just to note down, what would help this become better? And if you use the tools of these courses, day after day, your communication steadily gets better. Day after day, the feedback you give to those around you helps them get steadily better. Years from now, you're not going to hear anyone say to you that you have lots of potential. Because years from now, you really will have lived into the capabilities that you've been given here. And there's one final thing that I'd like to share. I've been teaching now for 16 years, and I've had 45,000 people come through classrooms. And I'm a psychologist, so it always intrigues me, the motivation of people. And I think there are three types of participants that come and spend time in our classes. Type 1 is what I call the optimistic idealist. This is the person that brings an apple to the teacher, that volunteers before it's even needed, and is a wonderful person to have there in the first few minutes of class, because their hand is straight up volunteering for everything. And as a professor, I love this type 1, certainly in the early moments of class. But over some time, it starts to get on my nerves because it's a little bit naive. Type 2 is what I call the optimistic realist. And the optimistic realist is the reason that I teach. The optimistic realist, when I ask for a volunteer, in their head there's a debate saying, a little later, when I know a little bit more, I'll let someone else go first. In their stomach, they're feeling, I'm uncomfortable. But even so, they lift up their hand because they know that for them to grow, they need to step out of what is comfortable. And by lifting up their hand, there's a moment where I see the hand, I look them in the eyes and they go, and there's a connection. And this is someone stepping out of what is comfortable. This is someone taking a risk to see if they grow as a person. And this type of participant is what gives me pleasure as a teacher. This is what keeps me coming back and enjoying the process of working with people to see them truly realize their potential. But there's a third type of participant. And I think it's worth using a chair just to illustrate the type 3 participant. In the type 3 participant, there's a number of clues that you can use to identify. The first thing that helps you identify type 3, leaning backwards. The second thing, arms folded. The third thing, shoulder slant. I think about 12-degree shoulder slant is the optimal. And if you really want the icing on the cake, just lift up one edge of your lips and this is the perfect example of the type 3 participant. The type 3 participant, the other name for a type 3 participant, is what I call sent by HR. The person that's in the room and doesn't think there's anything for them here. And I spent years believing that my role as a teacher was to reach this person, find out how to motivate them, find them how to connect. But there's a saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. I can bring you into the room, I can give you tools, but if you decide to come and not learn, you will succeed. What I've learned to do as a teacher is I don't call this type 3 a participant. I call them a donator, because financially they've given so that we can make this film, we can work in a room like this. But they've decided not to give more. They could have left their body at home, but for some accident, the body is in the room. What I've learned to do is thank the donators for their gift of money and ignore them and work with the type 1s and the type 2s. I look forward to seeing you. And we talked about preparation. So whether you've ever prepared fully before in your life, I would love you to take this moment and decide to come ready to really make use of our time together. Come where you've done enough preparation that you really are ready. And when we come into the room, it makes my job hard because it's hard work to find how to help you improve. But I guarantee if you come with that spirit, I will give everything that I have. That's why I teach. And if you learn everything in this book, that's not the aim. But if you see that communication really can have an impact, and you see that you have within you all the tools necessary to have a huge impact as a communicator, and you begin to practice and to put this into effort day after day, when you're 60 and 70, people around you will say to you, you are so lucky to be blessed with this skill of communication. You say, no, there's no luck. It's daily practice. Look forward to seeing you. It's going to be a great time together.